right, we'll get going. Thank you. And I'm going to do this for the benefit of everybody. There we go. All right. So tonight, our lesson is called Swallowing Pride. I recall a song by Hank Williams Jr. long before he became Bocephus, you know, the guy with the beard and the hat and the shades and all that. Before that, he wrote a song called Pride's Not Hard to Swallow Once You've Chewed It Long Enough. That's a good word. Tonight we want to look at swallowing pride, and our primary text is going to be 2 Kings. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Sharon. 2 Kings chapter 5, and beginning in verse 1. Now, pride can turn us into our own worst enemies. It can make us dangerously self-reliant. It can shape our assumptions about our deepest needs. We know best what our deepest needs are. Or make us think we don't have needs at all. The arrogance of pride keeps us from receiving the wonderful things that God has for us. And it can even keep us from receiving the healing we need. And our scripture lesson this week, it includes the story of a powerful Gentile man, Naaman, and an oppressor of God's people. That was him as well. He's afflicted with a terrible, humiliating disease, and he learns that humbly surrendering and submitting to a simple command of God would lead to physical healing and spiritual discovery. And Psalm 66 also talks to us about how those who trust in God and not themselves find deliverance and can invite others to join in their joyful celebration. So tonight, we want to learn a little bit from their examples. Now, start off with a question. Can you think of a situation where your pride harmed you or kept you from experiencing something good from another person or from God? Where do I start? For me, where do I start? I mean, I mean, I just got to be honest. Yeah. But what about y'all?
What was the question again?
Sure. You think of a situation when your pride harmed you or kept you from experiencing something good from another person or from God. So this would be an instance where you or one of us too proud, and it kept us from receiving something good. You think of a time that you're willing to put on the record? No, none of y'all have any problems with pride.
Oh,
That's
that
amazing to
wasn't the
me.
question.
That's awesome.
That's right.
You know,
No.
I find it hard.
Absolutely not a true statement.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm just, but it's quiet in here, you know, except for this guy running his mouth, you know. I mean, I can look back on many times, especially in my teenage years, when my dad especially wanted to do something good for me, and I just wouldn't let him do it because I just wouldn't let him love me the way that he wanted to love me, and that was my pride. That wasn't me just being a stubborn teenager. That was my pride getting in the way, and I've always regretted that. And then my dad, though, he always said, "I don't remember any of that." And I thank God for the blessed misremembering.
Yes.
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead, Gail. Go ahead.
I mean, pride is one of those things that keeps you from asking for forgiveness. It's one of those things that goes between relationships and not wanting to back down from what you feel. And it just goes on and on and on, and it's horrible.
You're right. It does. And then the other part of this question is, has your pride ever gotten in the way of your offering help to another person? I just got some good people in this room. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, I don't care to share it.
Okay, you don't have to.
Happens.
You don't have to.
It happens that
It
you
does.
just,
Yeah.
you just,
Yeah.
they don't deserve my help is what
Yeah, that's, yeah, okay, yeah, that's good,
I think that's part of being who we are as a human.
yeah.
And that's really hard not to do if you're hurt.
Right. And so to kind of, to continue this conversation here, because this is all in reference to the story that we, from Naaman and Elisha, and we'll get into it. When you think back on those situations, why do you think you felt so prideful? And what, start there. Why do you think you felt so? Or I guess I have to start saying, why do you think people who do those kinds of things feel so prideful? There you go, there you go.
Thinking that you're always right, that person is in the wrong.
Yeah,
You mean I'm not?
yes,
Or nobody wants to admit saw it wrong.
yeah,
But
that's
one of
good.
my major problems was not asking for help,
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm,
because I would not look self-sufficient, which is what I should look like.
it's
Yeah,
good. Anton?
That's a good example.
The times that I remember, I don't view it as being pride per se, is I'd be doing something and I was so mission oriented that I wouldn't stop what I was doing to help or do whatever it was
I got
they
you.
needed. So
I got you.
get this done first and then I'll do that.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah,
That's
okay.
where it's bothered me a couple of times, because I've done stuff and then afterwards I think, hey, I should have stopped and
There
done
you go.
this other thing first.
That's right.
Well, and on the back of that, Hinton, for me, sometimes it's, I think my way's better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
is, just in case
But
anybody.
it's not necessarily.
Mine is, But, I mean, see, speaking of pride, right, there you go. All right, so tonight's lesson is swallowing pride, and we have a great example, one among many in the Bible, of that in Naaman. So, 2 Kings, chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. If you're already there, you got your Bible open, go ahead and read that as we begin. 2 Kings 5, 1 to 3.
Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now bands from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy."
All right. Read verses 8 through 10. Go ahead.
But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me, that he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean."
All right. So this skin disease we call leprosy today is also known as Hansen's disease. But when the Bible mentions leprosy, it can refer to any number of skin diseases. Okay. Nevertheless, it was as devastating then as it is now. So what do you know about leprosy in the Bible?
Usually everybody is
Stays away.
made to go away from everything they know.
Yeah, they're banished.
Unclean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm banished,
Very unclean.
unclean, can't do anything, can't go home, can't, nothing. Right, it's terrible.
Parts tend to fall off.
They do tend to do that. Yes, they do, definitely. You've mentioned the restrictions, of course. And of course, what it felt like to be excluded would have been terrible. Not only were you excluded from your family, the community, and you could not worship because of that. Now, other than having a skin disease, Naaman is an impressive man. Looking at the verses, he's a commander of the army of the king of Aram, and he was a great man, and he was in high favor with his master, because by him, interestingly enough, the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a mighty warrior. So you hear those words. I mean, this is tall cotton here. He's tall cotton. He's really something. It was kind of like when we were up in Forsyth County on Monday night. We really knew we were in tall cotton. Eating at the Red Robin, we could tell this here is not just your ordinary restaurant. Just by the architecture, looking at the Arby's and seeing how it looked like it was like a library because of, the building codes and everything, we were in tall cotton. See you later, Carol. All right. But he was tall cotton, right? And of all these things that describe Naaman, which of these traits would we admire in a person today? I mean, just thinking about if he was one of our friends or neighbors, or if we knew him, he would obviously get respect being commander of the army, right?
Commander of the army,
Mhm. Said he was a great man, and his master really, really was with him. Why? Because Yahweh had given Aram victory. Isn't that interesting? Victory. So he was a great man. So yeah, I think we would definitely have described to him great things. Now that phrase in Hebrew, great man, suggests he was an intimidating presence and an impressive person. He holds great authority and has access to great power. He probably took great pride in these qualities. I mean, wouldn't you? Considering Naaman's greatness, how do you think his skin disease affected his life? He wasn't an Israelite, okay? But how do you think his skin disease affected his life? We have to spitball this because the Bible isn't clear on it.
Well, he had to be in great pain.
Had to be. Yeah. You think he might have been embarrassed?
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
the military officers that I've been around,
Yes, sir.
all think of God to begin with.
Well,
And I think he sort of felt that way himself.
yeah, I think that's absolutely.
So you met
Absolutely
my
possible.
father, huh?
Uh-oh.
Well, I went to school, all the teachers were colonels or above.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, they thought they knew it all.
Oh, yeah. Now, we have to ask, though, in verse 3, how and why does the servant girl express concern for Naaman? I mean, first let's start with the why. Why would she?
I think she had compassion,
Yeah,
and
Yeah, but-
because he was the kind of man that he was, and she could probably see what other people didn't pay attention to as far as how he was feeling about it.
yeah, she was an Israelite taken by the Arameans. This is a young lady who was taken as a slave by the conquering army at the time, the Arameans. But she obviously thought a lot, and it reminds me in the New Testament of the story. This man speaking to Jesus, a centurion's servant is ill and is going to die. And some of the Pharisees come to Jesus and say, this man is worthy to have you do this for him because he helped build our synagogue. He helped us. He is a man of reputation, good reputation. And so I think kind of like Naaman. Otherwise, if I was a slave girl of the enemy, I just sit there and watch him,
Rot.
rot. It just from a fleshly point of view. But that's not what happens. All right.
And she was obviously well treated.
Yes, she speaks to her mistress and says, hey, listen, tell him because there's a prophet, right? Okay, let's move along. In verses 4 through 6, Naaman goes directly to the king of Aram, who in turn asks the king of Israel to heal Naaman. In verse 7, King Jehoram of Israel fears this is a stunt, pick a fight between the nations. Our lesson picks up the text in verse 8. When the prophet Elisha hears of the situation, why do you think Naaman went to the king first instead of following the servant girl's suggestion? He didn't have to go to the king. He could have just went
almost equal to him since he was a conquering general.
Yeah, kind of a protocol thing, kind of a, sir, just so you know, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, I
Because
think,
he wasn't expected to just disappear.
right, in case something happened, where was he? Right,
Oh, man, what Elijah, there was a prophet there,
that's true.
and he wants to keep the king of everything.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
and
right,
also he wouldn't want to be seen as an invading army.
that's true. That is very true. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. Now, he finally goes to Elisha, after kind of with his hat in his hand at this point. But he's still very prideful, right? He gets there, it's so funny to me. He gets there and, very much, waiting for the prophet to come out and because he looked at Elisha as less than him, okay? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
you're gonna come out and you're gonna do this for me, right? Well, that is Naaman's pride. Elisha doesn't even come to the door. Elisha sends his servant to the door and says, you know what he says, 7 times dip in the Jordan, and then you'll be clean. That's it. And we know of his response, don't we?
He doesn't want to go.
He gets flat out angry, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He
And
feels
starts-
affronted.
Yeah, he starts criticizing. I'm not gonna, look.
You
I'm
didn't
not
even come out to meet me.
I'm not
Sent your
gonna,
servant.
look at that muddy creek over there. Everybody talks about the Jordan River and all that stuff. And it has spots where it's just like, oh my, like, woo, but in other places, it's quite beautiful. But in most of it, it's a muddy creek. And it was embarrassing to him and insulting to him. Aren't the waters at home, better? Couldn't he have sent me back home? Because he didn't want to be in Israel any longer than he had to be. But he was insulted. And now let's find out what happens. We'll read it, I'll read this section here. After Elisha's servant tells him what he's supposed to do.
What verse are we on?
12b, second part of 12.
Thank you.
Listen to what he says here. It says, Naaman turned and went away in a rage. But his servants approached and said to him, Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was, wash and be clean? So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, and he was clean. And then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company. He came and stood before him and said, Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a present from your servant. All right? So he's mad. He gets an easy command, but he didn't get it face to face from the prophet himself. So he was, his pride was hurt because he expected Elisha to greet him face to face. The muddy Jordan River is not far away, but Naaman knows that the rivers Abana and Pharpar in Aram run cleaner and clearer and would be better for bathing. And this is true. All right? So why do you think Naaman responds to the prophet's instruction with rage?
Disrespect for one thing.
Yeah, I think it's big disrespect. His pride got hurt. Yeah, I mean, his anger flared.
I mean, his position, everywhere he would go, was always the head knocker that met him. It
Yes,
wasn't
sir.
the servant.
That's right. That's right. When he went to the doctor's office, he didn't get the PA. He got the doctor. He didn't get no. He got the doctor. That's right. So his anger, though, is an expression of his pride. He probably thinks he deserves better treatment. I would say that he is absolutely unjustified in his anger because he has been asked to do a very simple, but it's also a very humbling thing that he's being asked to do.
One thing about Christianity, when we look at all of the other religions.
Yeah.
What they want you to do is you got to go physically do something.
Yeah.
Christianity, all you have to do is believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Too easy for a lot of people.
Yeah. But he doesn't go, he's angry, but his servants, and one thing we notice here is he seems to have a close relationship with his servants, because most of the time, that kind of conversation wouldn't go on.
My father.
No,
You know, my father, they call him my father, you know, and that's a term of endearment. They seem to have a close relationship and they question why. They want what's good for him. They want what's best for him. They challenge their master's perspective. Look, all he has asked you to do is dip 7 times. This is so easy. You know, I think also it might have been too good to be true, too, maybe to him. But that would be his pride getting in the way again, going, well, that's not going to do it. I mean, and the least he could have done was sent me back where some clean water is, you know, instead of over here in this muddy thing. But they beg him. They say, please, do it. You know, now here's a good one here. Why do we often assume a complicated solution is more reliable than a simple one?
What we brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, why is complicated more reliable?
Got to be more to it than that.
Exactly. I mean, oh, you can't say it, no. There's gotta be more to it, right? I think it has to do with, you know, and that was, I have to tell you, what's funny is this thing bucked all that, the inventors of the iPhone. They bucked all that with one button at the beginning. It don't have any buttons now. But at the beginning, the iPod and the iPhone had one button. And, you know, I used to have a, what do they call that phone? I loved it. It was, and it had the little tiny keys.
Not a flip phone.
No, it wasn't a flip phone. It was a smartphone. But I don't remember, I can't forget what it was.
The BlackBerry.
Blackberry. I had a Blackberry. And I thought that was that's the first one I got when I got here. And when I went on Verizon, I got me a Blackberry. I said, I'm gonna have me a Blackberry. I don't want the iPhone. Give me a Blackberry. And I absolutely loved that thing, but oh my gosh. Functionality, it looked cool, but, and it took me a phone exchange. But that was the idea here, simple, better. Instead of all these buttons everywhere, just one button for everything. And I thought, you know, that it seemed too good to be true. But as it turns out, except for the stubborn people who still are on, what's that other one called? Android or something like that?
Android,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's,
Samsung.
I'm looking at Hinton and Linnell. Yeah,
My brother-in-law's on the show.
yeah,
And this one here?
I'm looking at y'all.
I'm looking at the people who are
No, in
getting-
all seriousness, it is easier, once you get the hang of it, it's easier, but they send you updates to mess with you. Yeah, and so, but no, the idea there is that it could not be that simple. It cannot be that simple.
Y'all can buy me one for Christmas.
Okay, well, you know,
All right, we will.
yeah, you know, but we all have been in situations, I have to believe, where a situation is so complicated that a simple solution seemed impossible. I mean, we've all been in situations where the
Well, that
simple
couldn't be all
is
I
not going to
had to do,
happen.
yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
going to take some work. This is gonna take some, but in this particular situation, he's not just asking him to dip. That motion of dipping in the Jordan is humbling. He's humbling him. This is Elisha we're talking about here. We'll work. You and I, Elisha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was it
I don't know what I said.
Elisha?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I correct on tape because I care. There you go, all right?
Carol,
and-
Would
you
somebody
may
else
be
like to
right.
read next time?
Okay.
It's us Brits who do the long I. The rest of the world does an E or an it.
There you go. So maybe you're right. There you go. But I think sometimes it's, so, but Naaman is cured, isn't he?
Yeah.
The day we had 2,000.
But only after he puts away his pride.
Aaron.
He also realizes something that was a revelation to people of his day, that there is only one God. Remember I told you, then Gail, you actually went on and read the rest of this chapter. You told me on Sunday, where,
Yep.
you know, he asks, Naaman asks Elisha to forgive him when he goes in with his master into the temples. But that's not the end of the story. Gehazi, Elisha's servant, sees Naaman go away. He offers a gift to Elisha, and Elisha says, I don't want your gifts. You know, you get out of here, kid, you're bothering me. You know, he said he sends him back. He sends him back, but Gehazi, his servant, sees him send Naaman away, and it just makes him mad. He sent him away and didn't get anything for the miracle? Well, we'll see about that. And so Gehazi runs after Naaman, whose heart, I believe this, whose heart has clearly been affected by what has gone on, more than his skin has been cleansed on this day. He goes after him and says, oh my gosh, you know, he sees him running. Naaman says, what's wrong? Is everything okay with the man of God? Yeah, everything's okay, but we've just had some visitors come in, and we need some clothes or something. And so, you know, Naaman loads him down and says, here, please, here, let me give you this and let me give you that. And so he goes back and he's, you know, thinking to himself, pride. Got him, right? Got him. Well, he walks back and, see, this is the part of this story that gets me. He's working for Elisha. Elisha is the prophet who, when some kids were making fun of him because he was bald, y'all watch it now. And they said, go on up, baldy head, baldy head, baldy head. Elisha is the one that called out some bears. And these bears mauled these kids to death because they called him baldy head. So next time you're going to make fun of my lack of follicles, you better hope I'm not Elisha. But here's the point. He goes back and thinks that he's going to get away with this. And before he even gets in the door good, Elisha says, where you been? And he lies. Oh, I haven't been anywhere. I've been outside, you know. Did my heart not go with you when you went? Is this the time to be receiving gifts? So Naaman's leprosy is going to come upon you for the rest of your life. And you know what that meant? Exclusion from community, worship, period. Now that was the end of that story, right, Gail?
Yep, that was it. Wow.
Pretty bad. But the point here is that you have a Syrian, Aram, you have an Aramean war man of high reputation, whose heart has changed, who's healed and his heart has changed before. And he says, listen, remember, there's only one God in all the world, and it's Yahweh. And his heart has been changed, and the servant of the man of God just can't get over it. This is going to come up again and again. We heard, Peter, that you ate with some Italians. What in the world are you doing? We can't believe it when God stretches out past our group. There's something against it that just fights against it sometimes. And that's what happens here. And it's a tragic lesson to be learned. Now, before we're done, I want us to turn to Psalm 66, and I would like to invite someone to read verses 5 through 12. Psalm 66, verses 5 through 12.
Come and see what God has done. He is awesome in his deeds among mortals. He turned the sea into dry land. They passed through the river on foot. There we rejoiced in him. Sharon, pick it up, please.
He rules forever by his power. His eyes watch the nations. Let not the rebellious rise up against him. Selah. Praise our God, O peoples. Let the sound of his praise be heard. He has preserved our lives and kept our feet from slipping. For you, O God, tested us. You refined us like silver. You brought us into prison and laid burdens on our backs. You let men ride over our heads. We went through the fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance.
All right, thank you. Now, here in the good old US of A, we celebrate the 4th of July, and we remember events in our nation's history that secured our independence. Now, Psalm 66 refers to two important events in Israel's history, but our two focal stanzas sing about Israel's humble dependency on God rather than their independence. The song celebrates God's help in the past when the people faced the most difficult circumstances. Look at verse 6. It says, God turned the sea into dry land and enabled Israel to pass through the river on foot. What do you think the psalmist is referring to?
coming out of Egypt.
Parting of the Red Sea.
Right.
He's also talking about the Jordan River when they crossed over.
Absolutely, it could be either one of
Into
those.
the
That's right.
promised land.
Yep, that's right. In their history, the Hebrew people had many ups and downs. At times, they lived faithfully, and at other times, they disobeyed God and experienced the consequences. Do you notice any descriptions of national or personal pride in these verses? I mean, just scour them. The answer no. There is none. Okay? I mean, they're just the only reason we bring this up is that the pride that they feel is in God, their dependence upon God. So that's important for us. There are expressions of humility. Let's let the rebellious not exalt themselves. Bless our God, O peoples. He's kept us among the living and has not let our feet slip. There's one. For you, O God, have tested us. You have tried us as silver is tried. And then you brought us into the net or into prison. You laid burdens on our backs. You let people ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, and then here you go. Yet you have brought us out to a spacious place. This is high sovereignty of God here. This is everything bad that's happened to them, God has allowed. Everything good is because of his dependence, because of his love for them, and they depend on him for that. Okay? So the psalm mentions times of God's help, but also times of difficulty and hardship. The people brought some of those hardships on themselves, of course, and external forces imposed others, but God sustained Israel through all these difficulties and even used their struggles to improve them. And then finally, God brought them to a spacious place or abundant life. So when we think about this, think about in our life how God uses our struggles to strengthen us. And there are testimonies aplenty, I'm sure, of God using our struggles. You know, Paul said, and it's an oft-quoted verse, that God can take the very worst, and he did on that Friday. He took the very worst, and it's the very best now with the resurrection of Jesus. So we have challenges in our communities. We have challenges in our city. We certainly have challenges in our nation and our world. And I think one of the things to try to look for in all of this is God's presence and work through these challenges. Because the Israelites in this psalm, he speaks of them being refined. And then we think about how we're being refined. You know, what refining work is God doing in our life? A refiner's fire. You know, God's fire is a refining fire. It takes out the impurities and leaves leaves what is good, what is holy, what is fully human. And so it's important for us, but it's also important for us not to apply something that maybe doesn't necessarily, that is not necessarily part of God's refinement. But that's discernment. That's, staying in our word, staying prayed up and listening for the voice of God, whenever he speaks.
I think sometimes whenever we go through some of these difficulties, well, I think all the time we go through difficulties, we come out the other side, we realize that we wouldn't have been able to do it if we didn't have that reliance on God.
Yeah,
Because it's just too hard for us as humans.
absolutely.
I don't know how people do it. I
No,
don't know
we
how
don't
people
have-
go through stuff without
No, me either.
God.
I don't either.
I don't. But to close, getting back to the whole pride thing. Naaman's story shows that if we'll swallow our pride, we can become available to God's surprising and healing work. I'll give you an example. How prideful should Jesus have been?
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
He could have avoided and fixed everything, but he didn't.
I'm the Lord.
Yeah.
You better.
Mm-mm.
No,
None of that.
he didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
He didn't do it. He got down on his hands and feet and washed the feet of all of those disciples who, every single one of them, John gets a little bit of a pass, but the gospel writers are clear. They all took off.
Mhm.
If John came back quicker than anybody else, great. But they all used those clean feet to abandon him
Mhm.
in his deepest hour. And I think pride had a little bit to do with that as well. I think most of that was just being scared out of their mind. And by the way, the specter of a crucifixion should scare anybody, I would think.
Oh, I would think so.
You'd have to be the most hardened of hard. Just say, go ahead, get it over with, It would scare me to death. But as individuals and as a community, when we practice humility, we can experience God's deliverance, just like Naaman did. And praise God. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, next week. Oh, we're going back to Genesis. And guess who we're going to be encountering? Yaakov, my namesake. James comes from. In the New Testament, it's Yaakobas, and it's Yaakov in Hebrew, Jacob. That's where somehow Jacob became James. I don't know how, but it did. So we're going to be looking at his story. It's called Losing Sleep.
Oh, that's appropriate.
Yeah, it's good. It really does. It is appropriate when you think about me. Right. That's right.
Yes.
That's true. But as we close tonight,
And what is the passage for next week?
Genesis 32, let's see. You didn't ask me that, didn't you?
This is one where Jacob fight.
I think so. Genesis 32, verses 22 through 32. Yeah. And I'm preaching the gospel text for this coming week, so we won't be dealing with that.
Which text is that?
Luke 18, 1 through 8. Yeah. The persistent widow at prayer with the unjust judge. And the final question of the text is, well, when the end comes and God comes, will he find faith on this earth? So my title for my sermon is simply, will he? ? I'll have more to say about that in a few days, but I hope so. So God bless you all. Gail, thanks for chiming in, being here with us, and everybody else. God bless you. Those of you that are streaming this, thank you so much for doing that. It's just I'm grateful that you're taking the time to view the teaching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know, and I look forward to seeing you guys. Big weekend, big Life Together weekend here at the church. So I hope to see you guys around. sometime during the next few days. God bless.